Guys, welcome to another video. Purple Political Talk here, and Unbiased Prediction is here as well. And today is a bonus episode of our Purple Projections podcast. And today we're going to be doing a episode analyzing 6 important Senate races in 2020. UP, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. How about you, Purple?
I'm doing great. So, do you want to get into it, or do you want to say anything to your followers?
Just really quickly, episode 3, me and Purple are really excited for this, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So, yeah, that's it.
And also, guys, remember that I posted a video, I think yesterday, and I posted with a bunch of cool things we're doing. So remember, if you, in my comments, if you put hashtag PPT notified, you can get put in our next video. I'm not doing this for this podcast episode since it's collab, but for our next long video, I would definitely give the shout out to whoever won it. And we're also doing live streams and whatever. If you want to hear all the crazy things that we're doing, and the mock election link will be down in the description. We're doing all these crazy things. And if you want to be part of them, please make sure you're subscribed and look at the links. And yeah, go check out the video for more information. So do you want to get started?
All right.
So first of all, we're gonna answer this question. What is a contested Senate race, and how is it different from a presidential race, like a contested presidential race?
All right, should I go?
Yeah.
Okay, so for my definition of a contested Senate race, it has to have the possibility of flipping, not like some crazy best case scenario where like Donald Trump commits first degree murder, just like a real possibility of flipping in the at this point in time that we're currently in right now. Second, it has to have like there has to be like some data to like back it up. So like for example, Oregon is not a contested state. There's no data to back that up. However, there is data to back up, for example, Florida or Minnesota or Wisconsin being a contested state. In this case, a margin of a contested state for me would be any like a 1 vote victory to a 5% victory.
Yeah, so I feel like a contested race is actually like whatever falls between till likely and lean. But for the most part, like, it depends, because there's also degrees to races, because a race could be close and actually be the closest it's ever been, compared to a race that could be like super close and it's actually like super far off, because it's usually a very swingish state. And I think we have to make a comparison for the presidential race. These Senate races are a lot different than the presidential race, because you're seeing places where Democrats or Republicans are probably going to win, or in a presidential race you probably wouldn't see that, because remember, these are different from presidential races in the fact that they are very specialized. For example, Joe Biden and Donald Trump have to juggle 51 or 50 other places if they're campaigning in one specific swing state, compared to these senatorial candidates who are just focusing on that one state. That's why we see a lot of bigger possibilities of Democrats or Republicans flipping. So, you have anything else to say about this question?
Yeah, that's a really good thing to mention, in that it is a presidential election year, but it's also important to note that not all of these races are down ballot races. In Massachusetts, I can say with 100% certainty that Democrats are going to win there. In South Dakota, the Republicans are going to win. But some of these races that wouldn't normally look contested, like Montana, for example, is going to be very tight. They're not down ballot voters, and some of these voters are going to vote Trump and Bullock. And in Kansas, the same thing could happen, and maybe in Maine that could happen as well. So a lot of these voters are going to kind of be voting for a Democrat at the Senate level and Trump at the presidential level, or vice versa. So it's important to also note that. And it did happen in 2018. Very recently, Joe Manchin in the deep red state West Virginia, he was reelected, and in Montana, John Tester, he was also reelected only 2 years ago. So it's very possible that we see Democrats winning in red states this year.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting question, and you guys have to think about it, because then if you don't think about the senatorial factor, I would call it, because remember, these are two completely different races. Focusing on one compared to focusing on 51 is two different things. So let's get started and go to our first state, So me, I chose three. Purple Political Talk chose three, and UEP chose three too. And UEP for this. By the way, I have to change your logo next time we do the podcast.
Yeah. I did change my logo, but that's fine. So, I'm gonna start talking about Colorado, and I think that Colorado is not gonna be super competitive. But I want to kind of talk about this like for a bit because I think that people are already characterizing Colorado as a like for example, I love LTE, but he did characterize Colorado as not contested, even though Colorado is going to be contested. Um, I I have it as likely, but again, uh, it'll be contested because there is a Republican incumbent, Cory Gardner, and yes, Cory Gardner is unpopular, but Bernie Sanders he won the Democratic primary in Colorado. John Hickenlooper is definitely not a progressive; he's a moderate. He had a progressive challenger who didn't win. He Hickenlooper won big in his primary, but again, there are some people, some Bernie Bros, who are probably going to be staying home or just well, some are going to go for Hickenlooper, but some could stay home. And in a state that has very progressive Democrats, a big base of progressive Democrats, that could hurt Hickenlooper. However, most of them are going to go for Hickenlooper, and Cory Gardner is unpopular. Presidential election year, Colorado does have a tendency to vote down ballot. So I don't expect Gardner to win re-election.
Yeah, so this is interesting because specifically this race it's considered very safe and things like that. Yeah, there's a very high chance I would say of this race going by safe margins. Now, what is a thing that people have not analyzed? I feel is like there is still a pretty big Republican base in this state. A lot of people just think of Colorado as just like the big city with where they allow weed and stuff like that. And I feel like that's a very bad misrepresentation of the state. Because then by that means, I mean, that would be seeming like a very liberal state and progressive state, which at the end of the day it is. But with this race, we also have to think about, like UEP said, that the state of Colorado has a lot of progressive voters. Hickenlooper not being that super popular, he's popular, but he's not super progressive. So putting the state in a safe column, I would say, is a little bit irresponsible in your prediction, just since you have to consider these factors. And considering that some Bernie bros might get really mad, they might just simply go and vote even for Cory Gardner, just kind of like stop Hickenlooper from being senator. But at the end of the day, it's probably going to go to Hickenlooper. It's pretty solid. I would say, is it safe yet? Probably not. But is it like a likely state? Yes.
Yeah. So everything you said there is on point. I do want to mention the Hickenlooper. For those of you who don't know, he has won a statewide election before, twice, I believe. He was the former governor of Colorado, very popular in his state. He was also the former mayor of Denver. So yeah, he has a background, and he's won elections before. And this one probably shouldn't be the hardest because facing off in a presidential election year in a state that honestly Donald Trump is probably not going to win is only good news for him. So kind of like Purple said, Gardner could pull it off. I doubt he will. I'll be very, very surprised that he will, or if he does pull it off, but don't count him out yet because he has won before in 2014. Now, it was a red wave year, but he's done it before, and he still has a base in Colorado that will turn out for him. Maybe even bigger, or maybe even in higher numbers than the Democratic base, because as we all know, the Republicans do tend to be better at voting than Democrats.
Well, that's true also. And we also have to consider that the state of Colorado is heavily suburban. So, I mean, what's going to really hurt Hickenlooper is if Democrats start going through and commercializing on the abolishing the police movement and, like, take down and, like, rewrite history movement. That's really going to hurt Colorado and Hickenlooper because the big base of swing voters, the people who decide the election, are very suburban voters, which are somewhat very moderate. Yeah, they like Hickenlooper because they're moderate, but then they might say, no, we can't risk having a Democrat who will vote for these crazy ideas compared to Cory Gardner. So that's the thing we have to look out for.
Yep. Yep. I think that's it about Colorado. Yeah.
Okay, so next state is the one I chose. I chose the state of Montana, and this race is probably the closest race in 2020. We have incumbent governor for the state of Montana, Steve Bullock. He is a Democrat, and he's very popular compared to not popular, but not unpopular. He's not known that much. Incumbent Senator Steve Daines. So with this race, it's very interesting to see because currently Steve Bullock is outraising Steve Daines. It's both of them are named Steve, so let's call it the races with Steves because it's kind of confusing with the names. But they start doing all these different they start doing all these different things, and they're raising a lot of money in that race. And you see Republicans and Democrats, although the Democrats are raising him, they're doing pretty well, and it's going to be one of the races where the most money is spent. And I think that this race is very interesting because it's in a very solidly Democratic, a Republican state when it comes to the presidential election. But Montana voters are not afraid to vote down ballot. So right now, it's favoring a little bit towards Steve Bullock, but Steve Daines has a very high chance of winning and pulling off an upset.
Yeah, I like everything you said there. But I do want to mention that Steve Daines, he got lucky in 2014. Everything was right for him. So, first of all, it was a red wave year. The Republicans picked up 9 seats in the Senate. It was an anti-Democrat year, so that helped him out. Second, there was a retiring Democrat, Max Baucus, I believe. And now, seeing as Steve Daines is the incumbent, he beat Amanda Curtis, who I think was she was a state she was a Democrat from the Montana State House of Representatives, and she was not very well known. Didn't really run a strong campaign, and she lost by I think 16 points to Daines in a red wave year. So everything was right for Daines in 2014. Now it's kind of reversed. He has the strongest opponent imaginable in Montana. I mean, Steve Bullock is the best option for the Democrats in Montana. He is a popular governor who has won statewide races before. Yep, that and the fact that Donald Trump is right now on the path to defeat. Can he win? Yes, he certainly can, but right now, not looking too good for him. So, also the polling has Bullock hit by sometimes even like 8 or 9 points, and I don't think it'll be that big of a margin, but I do think that he does have the advantage. Also, I don't live in Montana, but I have friends who live in Montana who they think that Bullock is going to win because he's very popular, has kind of the factor where, yes, it is a presidential election year, but remember, in 2012, Mitt Romney won Montana by, I think, 20 points. John Tester was reelected to the U.S. Senate in that same year on the same ballot.
In 2016, he won the same in the same ballot as Trump. So
yeah. So all the signs point to a Bullock victory, but I'm not going to count on Daines in any way possible because he is the incumbent and he's not unpopular. So he does have a very good chance of winning. However, Bullock, from everyone I've talked to, I know a lot of Trump Bullock voters, so I think Bullock is 100% going to outperform Biden, and I'd say that he has a pretty good shot at winning. So I give this to Bullock narrowly.
I'm going to compare this to the Senate race we saw in 2018 with Matt Rosendale and John Tester. If I'm thinking about the right race, yeah. I think those were the two that were running.
Yeah.
It was a close race, but Democrats ended up pulling it out. Is it because it was a Democratic wave year? Man, I couldn't do. Should we call it a Democratic wave? Probably not. Yeah, they won.
I think it was a Democratic wave.
No, I don't think so because you won the House, but it was a complete disaster. Okay, but anyways, let's not get into that argument right now. But with the state of Montana, like you said, there's a lot of Trump Bullock voters, and that really helps out. And look, Steve Bullock technically has the incumbency factor as well because he's an incumbent governor. And this year has somewhat been trending more Democratic, and especially with these more conservative candidates, they're doing a lot better. That's why you don't see someone like, for example, if they were to run a very big progressive in the state, they would lose by huge margins. But since they're running a conservative, even a moderate to conservative person, that's why we're seeing a contested race. So the state of Montana is very interesting. I would categorize it anywhere from around maybe 1 to 3% for Steve Bullock. UEP?
I think it's going to be the second closest race tonight in terms of percentage. Obviously, Montana is a small state, so it could very realistically be the. I mean, actually, in terms of the raw vote, I like honestly, we could see Steve Bullock winning by like a couple thousand votes, because remember, the population of Montana is like 900,000 people, so and only like half or not even like a third of those people are going to be voting, and it's going to be a very close race. So in terms of the raw vote, this is probably going to be the closest race, and I characterize this as a tilt Democratic state, although I could move it up to lean from what the signs that we're showing, that we're seeing, but I think it'll be tilt.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next state. So it's going to be an interesting race in Montana. We're going to have to see what goes on. The next state we chose is the state of Alaska. Very underestimated Senate race. So UAP, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so Alaska, I know that the whole political community, like in the past few weeks, has kind of realized that Alaska, at least at the Senate level, is going to be contested. But I think that it's still underrated, because go over to Nestler.org, 1S, and they believe that Al Gross is going to win by 8 points. So if you're watching this on your computer, when you're done with this video, go to Nestler.org, and they were very accurate in 2018. They have Gross ahead by 8. Second, Alaska, the Republicans are ignoring it, and Al Gross has out-fundraised Dan Sullivan. There was a poll that came out that had Sullivan ahead by 5, and that's fair. I mean, I could see Sullivan winning this by 5. But they surveyed a lot of libertarians and Republicans, some more conservative voters, so I think it could be closer than that. But Al Gross is running a very strong campaign. He's an independent technically, so if he wins, he'll be kind of like a Bernie Sanders independent type who like caucuses with the Democrats, but is technically an independent. So that does help him in Alaska. Plus, Democrats have won Alaska before. They had an independent governor who was more of a Democrat, Bill Walker, until 2018. They had a Democrat in the Senate, Mark Begich, from 2008 to 2014. And even in a red wave year in 2014, Dan Sullivan barely won his race. He's also originally from Ohio, and he's really not a very strong incumbent. He is not popular or unpopular, kind of like Steve Daines. So, not super, like, people aren't going to be energetic to vote him out or to vote or to keep him in. So I think that he does have the edge in this race, but Al Gross, don't be surprised if Al Gross does pull it off in November.
Well, yeah, this race is very interesting in the sense that it's kind of weird. I mean, Alaska politics for a really long time has been pretty weird. I mean, just look, you have people like Sarah Palin being governor, and then you had a Democratic governor, something crazy like that. And then there's a lot of big Democrats in the state. And this state, I would say, is similar a little bit to Montana in the way that they're not afraid to vote the ballot. And considering they're not the hugest fans of Trump, it really does help. I would say with the state of Alaska, an interesting thing to see is that usually what ends up working in a strategy that Democrats go is that they run over, or technically speaking, they don't run. An independent, like a popular independent runs, they don't run a candidate and they just caucus behind the independent. And then there's a very big possibility that they go and win the caucus. And it also, like, for many reasons, there might be independents. Because people like Bernie Sanders, technically speaking, they're independent because they don't want to pay party fees. But, like, compared to for example, an Angus King who's a little bit more moderate, he's just independent for being independent. So it depends also what type of independent. I haven't looked too much into Al Gross, but he looks like he's a strong candidate. He's running a good campaign, and like you mentioned, Dan Sullivan is by no means very popular right now. So I mean, he's not also unpopular, but he's just like meh. People just like, what do you think of Dan Sullivan? Meh. That's what they think. So at this point in time, I think Alaska has a very good shot going to the Democrats. But right now, I'd say it's anywhere from the lean to likely Republican column. UP?
Yeah, I think it's going to be lean. And also, I do want to say that in the states that went for Trump in 2016, by pretty big margins, I think that he has the worst approval, like behind Ohio and Iowa. Trump has like the worst approval in Alaska. So that means that a lot of voters in 2016 voted for him but didn't like him, and B, uh, some of them just stayed home and do not approve of Trump. So this is going to be a much higher turnout year than 2016. I say that with a lot of confidence. And second, Alaska does have a very high third-party voters composition. We have a lot of libertarians, Green Party members, and there is a very far right-wing party in Alaska called the Alaskan Independence Party, which does get 3 to 5% of the vote every election and takes away votes from the Republicans. And a third-party candidate just filed like a month ago in Alaska to run under that banner. So that's only good news for Al Gross because it'll be taken away from Sullivan. And I would give Sullivan the edge, the incumbent in a state that is overall a red state. But if Al Gross can get enough voters to turn out for him, and hopefully for him, some conservatives go for, I don't know, the Alaskan independence guy, then Al Gross could very well pull this off. However, I put it as lean red.
Yeah, that's great. So we kind of like stand on the same ground with this race, and it's a very interesting race, like you said. Is it going to be like extremely close down to the wire? Probably not. But if things like, for example, for the Republican Party continue to unravel nationwide, and I'm going to make a metaphor. If the Republican Party is on a train and Donald Trump's driving the train. If they continue to if Donald Trump continues to tweet, he continues to do these crazy things, he's gonna crash the train and take the Republican Party with him. So as of right now, Alaska's looking pretty solid for the Republicans. But as we get closer to election day, anything could happen. UEP, anything else?
I think that's basically it. So just look out for Alaska, and I will keep you guys covered, and I'm sure Purple will as well.
Next, we have the state of Arizona. This has been a state that has been kind of trending swingish, I guess, since 2016, because before that, it was pretty solid for the Republicans. And 2018, we saw a Democrat win in the Senate with Kirsten Sinema, and now Martha McSally was her opponent, and she's rerunning for Senate because she kind of got given a seat when John McCain's seat was vacated. So right now she's running as a very unpopular incumbent. She's despised, I would say, in the state of Arizona, by most voters that really matter, like the Maricopa County voters, which are the ones that move and swing the election. You have Maricopa County, is very high likely that you will win the election. And you have also Mark Kelly, who's a very popular guy. He's husband of former Congressman Gabby Giffords. She got shot, and she's a big gun violence proponent. He was a former astronaut for the United States. He spent several years, or I don't know, I think several years in the space station. He's just very popular in the state of Arizona, and I think this is a very good place for the Democrats to pick up a seat. I would even go and say it's in the likely margin, and Democrats have a high chance of winning here. Mark Kelly has a great chance of winning here. UEP?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. So I do want to mention that you said that Arizona has been trending swingy, but I think we all of us, mostly unbiased YouTubers, have come to the consensus that Arizona is a tilt or lean blue state. Do you agree? Yeah. So,
but I mean, like trending swingy, it's it's moving like more to the center.
Yeah, I agree, but I did hear this in the comment section of some analysis of an Arizona Senate race video, but I think it's true because they said that Arizona voters are very moderate. Back 20 years ago, they voted for pretty moderate senators like John McCain. They elected Jeff Flake in 2018, who is a moderate. They also, I believe, Kirsten Sinema is much more moderate than Martha McSally. And in fact, there were some rumors that during the Trump impeachment trial, she was going to vote not to convict. Although in the end, she did vote to convict, but she's certainly a very moderate senator for the Democrats. So, anyways, Arizona does like moderates, and Kelly is a pretty moderate guy. Martha McSally is more right wing. And now she's not very super far right, but she is a pretty right wing senator who does vote with Trump like 95% of the time. So that's not good for her. In a state that is trending to the left, I mean, we saw her lose in 2018 to Kirsten Sinema, and it's not looking any better for her in 2020. And the same polls that had McSally ahead in 2018 over Sinema are putting Kelly ahead of McSally. So that means that that pollsters that overestimated McSally in 2018 are now putting Kelly ahead, which is horrible news for her. Plus, there's an inside it was like a poll that her campaign had conducted. She was tied with Kelly. It usually obviously say you're conducting a poll about yourself, you want to have yourself have a huge lead, but she had herself tied with Kelly, which is absolutely horrible. All the signs point to her losing, and I think that she'll probably lose. I put it as likely blue because she's the incumbent, but she's very unpopular.
Yeah, and this race is, I think is very interesting. For a reason is that I think Martha McSally's biggest mistake in 2018 was kind of heavily allying with Trump's quote unquote. I mean, not saying that allying with Trump is bad, but in the scenario where she was, they're very moderate in the state of Arizona, like allying with Trump, who's seen as a very radical guy, was a bad idea. Where does that help out? In the border counties. Yeah, that's going to help you out and probably pick up your margins there because a lot of people have strong feelings about the kind of border protection plans that Donald Trump has. But as you go up in the state and go into more the conservative, the more moderate counties, those counties are no longer voting on immigration. Some of them are, but most of them are voting for other issues. And Martha McSally, she was a very immigration-based candidate, and it was a far-right policies on that. And Martha McSally, honestly, is going to have, I think, a little bit of a difficult time of winning the race. She's probably going to lose, considering that inside polls show her tied, which is not a good sign. UP, anything else?
Yeah, I did forget to mention one thing. That Mark Kelly is the husband of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, who you mentioned someone tried to assassinate her, and since then she has been a big advocate for gun restrictions and background checks, and she's very popular, so only helping Kelly. So everything is lining up for a Kelly victory, and again, I think he'll win.
Okay, yeah, so this race is interesting. I mean, it's not going to be one of the closer ones, and still, it's going to be very contested in the sense that it's going to be very interesting to watch how it unravels. I mean, considering how politics is, anything could happen because who knows? Either Martha McSally or Mark Kelly has a scandal or something big like that. Boom, the election is completely decided. Will that happen? Probably not, but it's still a possibility. So let's move on to our next state, the state of Kansas.
Okay, so I was the one who suggested this, and this race is, my blood, like, I'm kind of joking, but, like, I kind of get, like, a little, like, angry, like, I guess when like, people characterize Kansas as, like, a likely or safe red state at the Senate level, because the circumstances for Kansas are horrible for the Republicans. Now, I do want to clear up that if Chris Kobach probably has, like, a 75% chance of being the nominee. If he isn't, this is a safe red state, and I'm not going to be talking about this anymore. But as of right now, he's the favorite, and it looks like he's going to win the nomination. So for this video, let's just pretend that Chris Kobach is the nominee for the Republicans. Now, Chris Kobach is a very far right-wing politician, a big Trump supporter, and he ran for governor of Kansas in 2018. Now, he lost by a likely margin. It wasn't a squeaker, it was a likely margin to Laura Kelly, who is much more progressive than Barbara Bollier, who is the Democrat running for Senate in this race. And Barbara Bollier, she served in the Kansas State Legislature as a Republican, then switched because she wasn't a huge fan of Trump, and B, had a big feud with Governor Sam Brownback, who is very unpopular, and is part of the reason why Laura Kelly is the governor of Kansas right now. So, anyways, going back to the Senate race, Chris Kobach, he has a very bad history of kind of making racist assumptions about certain races, and kind of trying to suppress the vote, and hurting Democrats in elections. Now, he was the former Secretary of State of Kansas, so he was the one who was kind of rigging the elections for the Republicans, and he accused like thousands of immigrants of voter fraud, and none of them got convicted for it. So he has kind of a bad record in that regard, and there are a lot of Republicans who really dislike him, and that's part of the reason why he lost to Laura Kelly in the governor's race of 2018, and he still has a shot at winning, because there was a third party independent, Greg Orman, who is pretty progressive. So he only took away votes from Laura Kelly. So even though Orman and Kelly were vote splitting, Kelly still won. So 2020, looking kind of like a blue wave year. Maybe not, but it probably will be. Chris Kobach is not in a great position, and I think that the Republicans could very well lose this seat, because Barbara Bollier is a popular person, and I think that Kobach is, well, I know that he's very unpopular. So purple?
Yeah, so with Chris Kobach, considering that he's like extremely unpopular with the Kansas people, he has a very low chance of winning. I mean, it's still pretty high, but compared to like what it should have been, like I mean, in a safe state, like presidentially, or red state like state of Kansas, his chances of winning are atrocious for a Republican. And honestly, with Barbara Bollier being kind of popular, with her being a very conservative Democrat, I would say she's not as progressive as Laura Kelly, as you mentioned. I feel like this is a very interesting race. And from day one, Republicans have been freaking out when Chris Kobach announced his candidacy. The Republican voters, and like the heavy Republican voters, which are the biggest base in the state of Kansas, they want Chris Kobach. So they're the more moderate and the other faction of the Republican Party, and kind of the independent, which make a big part of the state of Kansas, they don't like Chris Kobach. So from day one, the Republicans in Kansas have been trying, or the GOP, like the chair, has been trying to find another candidate. They asked Mike Pompeo to run. He was a former congressman from there, the current U.S. Secretary of State. And they've asked many different people from the state of Kansas to run. Right now, still the base and the majority of the Republican Party has been wanting Chris Kobach, but the establishment of the GOP wants someone else to run. And honestly, that comes to show that how they know inside that if they run Chris Kobach, they will lose. It's very likely they will lose. And considering Barbara Bollier has been raising big amounts of money, she's been doing like good things like with her campaign, and she's been running a good campaign, she has a very high chance of winning. I would rate it anywhere from tilt to lean Democratic. UP?
Yeah, I like everything you said there. Now, Kobach isn't 100% going to be the nominee. He does have some opposition, like Roger Marshall, who is more moderate. And if it's Roger Marshall, it's a safe red state at the Senate level. But Kobach, again, is super unpopular, kind of like you said. And Barbara Bollier has fundraised him. She has the lead in the polls over him. And the voters, here's how I think of it. GOP is, I'd say, like, kind of 40% Tea Party, 25% evangelical, and then 20% moderate, and then 15%, kind of super conservative. So Tea Party and super conservatives are going to go for Kobach. Some of the evangelicals are, and the moderates are definitely not going to go for him. Whereas Democrats in Kansas are entirely united behind Barbara Bollier, and Kansas does not have a lot of progressive Democrats. I believe Hillary Clinton won the primary there in 2016, and Joe Biden won it in 2020. So not a huge progressive base, and Democrats are going to be entirely united behind Barbara Bollier. And we're probably going to have a lot of, or most of the moderates and independents going for Bollier because Kobach is just so polarizing. And his base is not enough to get him elected in Kansas. I know it's Kansas, but it's still not enough. And he'll come very close, but I think he'll lose. I rate this as still Democratic.
Yeah, so this race is interesting. It's going to be close. And, I mean, technically speaking, if things go really bad for the Trump-Kobach train, which, I mean, Trump and Kobach are on the same train. I'm going to make the same metaphor I made earlier. And if this train derails, like it's probably going to, like soon, I would say that Chris Kobach is completely done for in the state of Kansas. He probably won't run for politics or like be part of politics ever again in the state of Kansas. For a couple year, if she wins, it could be pretty argued that she might be a one-term senator, but a win is a win, and momentarily, that's what the Democrats do. So that's what I think about the state of Kansas, and let's move on to the last state, the state of North Carolina. UP, do you want to start on this one?
Sure, thanks. So, this, I think, I mentioned earlier that Montana could be the closest in terms of the raw vote. I think for percentage, this state could be the closest because we have a unpopular but not super unpopular incumbent, Tom Tillis, going up against a pretty strong challenger, Cal Cunningham. Now, Cal Cunningham, I could see that. Now, this could be lean, but I say it's still Democratic because I just don't. Democrats, even in a blue wave year 2008, they still only won North Carolina by like a couple thousand votes. And I know demographic trends are only helping the Democrats here, blah, 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 blah. But this is going to be a very, very close state. And North Carolina is no stranger to close races. In fact, in 2016, they had a very close Senate race between Burr and who's the challenger? I'm forgetting.
Kay Hagan.
Yeah, Kay Hagan. Yeah, she was the incumbent. Wait, no.
No, never mind. Kay Hagan was sitting
Yeah.
in the seat.
Yeah, sorry. So, Kay Hagan, she was a senator. She won 2008 and then lost in 2014. And if I'm correct, she then ran in 2016, right?
Oh, wait, did she? I think she ran in 2016. Yeah, I think it was her.
Like, she won it in 2008. So, yeah, so we're having a mental block. But the point is...
I mean, something like that. It was like some popular Democrat and they lost.
Yeah, so, but it was still very close. And this race is going to be close. And, in fact, in 2016, Roy Cooper won by the slimmest margin ever in a governor's race.
Now he's now expected to win by a big margin.
Yeah, and he's super popular now, and at this point, he could very well win by 10 points in this race. But we're not talking governor's races don't matter right now. Talking about the Senate, and Cal Cunningham is a strong challenger. He is in the North Carolina State Legislature, and I do expect him to narrowly pull this off because Tom Tillis is unpopular, and because he's outraised Tillis, he's polling ahead of him consistently, and Tillis just doesn't have as big of a base as Cunningham. And plus, difference between 2014, the year Kay Hagan lost her re-election bid, was that in 2014, state of North Carolina had a Republican governor and a Republican Secretary of State, which kind of means there was voter suppression. In 2020, they have a Democrat governor and a Democratic Secretary of State. That's very, very, very good news, and I cannot stress that enough. In the South, it's huge news for the Democrats to have a...
I'm going to say something right here, and I mean, you're kind of making this stereotype that, like, Republicans usually voter suppress more, and that's true, but mind you, Democrats do it, and I wouldn't be too, like, I wouldn't count them out. I mean, it's
they
not
do
like
do
they're
it.
Gonna go and like, completely voter fraud, but you have to consider that whoever's in power is going to try to rig the election somehow.
Yeah, but in this case, Democrats are in power, kind of like how in Georgia the Republicans are in power, but in North Carolina, Democrats are in power, and so that is only good news for them. So I expect Cunningham to win. Could be lean, but I think it'll be tilt, just because NC is a close state.
Race, I would also like to mention that that Tom Tillis is not only running off of his unpopularity, but also the kind of the mistrust between the other Republican senator from North Carolina and the North Carolina people, Richard Burr. And these two races are completely two different races, but Richard Burr kind of had recently had a very big scandal. He had to resign from the committee chair. He was the Judiciary Committee chair. And it was something related to, like, financing. Like, took advantage. I think was it the coronavirus or something like that? Or was it? I forgot exactly what the scandal was, but it was, like, something big with mistrust of the people. So maybe some people are going to take that scandal and say Republicans are like this, and they stereotype them, and then that might really affect Tom Tillis. But I think Tom Tillis is kind of just a bad candidate compared to Cal Cunningham. Considering Cal Cunningham is such a good candidate, I think he can go and become the next senator from the state of North Carolina. I feel like he will win from anywhere from a tilt to lean margin, but it's going to be all about money. Whoever can raise the most money, which at this point Cal Cunningham is doing a lot more, and spend it wisely, that's who's going to win. And Cal Cunningham is doing that right now. UAP?
Yeah. I like everything you said there. I think that's it. So yeah. So as of right now, I believe that North Carolina does favor the Democrats, and I expect them to pull it off here. Although Tillis could very well win, but I think it'll be Cunningham.
Okay, so I think those are all the races. I want to thank all of you for watching. This is episode 3 of our Purple Projections podcast, analyzing 6 important races in 2020. And before we go, I just wanted to mention a honorable mention race, and it's not more for its general election race, but for its primary, Massachusetts. Massachusetts is having a very interesting primary because the Kennedy, Joe Kennedy III, I mean, part of the Kennedy family, he has that name recognition, is challenging incumbent Ed Markey for the Senate seat. And right now, it's looking like it would be a very interesting primary to see. It's favoring Joe Kennedy and things like that. Do you want to mention anything about that race, VP?
I know that's basically like, I guess I like Ed Markey more, so I'm kind of rooting for him, but I have to accept that Joe Kennedy is the favorite in all the polling data. He's outraised Ed Markey, I believe. And Joe Kennedy, famous last name, he has, super famous name, so I think he'll win. But obviously, a general election in Massachusetts is not going to be competitive at all. So, yeah.
This race is, I mentioned this race just because we didn't want to put it in the video because it wasn't like a Senate race where it was the general election contested, but the primaries are heavily contested. So, guys, I want to thank all of you for watching. And, guys, remember, if you want to, so there's the mock election. I will put the link down in my description. There is the live stream that is happening soon. Make sure you guys turn on post notifications for both channels. Like, subscribe for both channels. And remember to go subscribe to UEP. He has great content going over there. He's doing a great series right now where he goes and does election nights, quote unquote, for each single state in the United States. It's a very good web series. I recommend you guys go watch it. And yeah, there's a mock election with me, and there's many different things that we can do, and there's many fun things we can do with this channel. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I mean, UP, do you have anything to say?
Yeah. Before we go, thank you, Purple. Also, please do check out Purple's channel. He just hit 200 subscribers. Both of us want to hit 500 subs in the next few months. And if you could help us out, we would appreciate that very much. And Purple does do daily premieres, so just go check out his videos too. And I hope you'll subscribe to both him and me and give us both a chance. So thanks for watching, and I think we're done.
Can we, guys, I'm going to give us a goal. By, the end of this video, when we finish it, can we get Purple Political Talk to maybe 207 subscribers? And let's get UEP to 220. Can we do it? I think we can. Everything is possible. So,
all right.
Bye, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and goodbye.